The massive council chamber floated in deep space, constructed from living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Inside, thousands of alien beings gathered for their monthly meeting. Some walked on legs, others floated on energy fields, and many more slithered or crawled across the polished floors. They represented every corner of the galaxy, united under one government that had existed for over 30,000 years. Ambassador Rixtal stepped onto the speaking platform. He was tall, covered in dark green scales with golden eyes that reflected the chamber's light. In his clawed hands he held a data tablet that projected images into the air above him. "Honored members," he began, his voice automatically translated into 4,000 languages simultaneously. "Today I present my findings on the Sol system." A collective silence fell over the chamber. Sol. That name existed only in the oldest historical archives. Most beings present had never heard it spoken aloud. Rixtal continued, 50,000 years ago, a young species called humans lived on the third planet of this system. They called their world Earth. Our ancestors detected their primitive radio signals and planned to make contact once they developed faster space travel. He paused, letting the hologram shift to show a beautiful blue and green planet. But before contact could happen, a nearby star exploded. The gamma ray burst hit Earth directly. Every probe we sent afterward showed a dead world. No signals. No life. Nothing but radioactive dust. Commander Thexlar, an insectoid warrior with black armor-like skin, raised one of his 4 arms. "And your report today? The radiation has finally cleared after all these years. Earth is still dead. I recommend we remove the quarantine and allow mining operations in the system. The outer planets have valuable resources." The vote took only minutes. Everyone agreed. Why protect an empty graveyard? Rixtal felt satisfied as he returned to his private quarters on the station. He had spent his entire career studying dead civilizations. Humanity was just another species that had died too soon, too weak to survive the dangers of the universe. He had seen hundreds like them. The galaxy was cruel and only the strong survived. He prepared for sleep, thinking about his next project. Perhaps he would study the Velkari next, another species that had destroyed themselves in nuclear war 8,000 years ago. 3 days passed normally. Then everything changed. Rixtal woke to urgent alarms blaring through his quarters. Red lights flashed on every wall. His communication console showed priority alerts from multiple sources. Something was very wrong. "Ambassador Rixtal." A voice shouted through the speakers. It belonged to Station Commander Velnix, who managed one of the deep space monitoring outposts. "We have an emergency situation." Rixtal activated the holographic display with trembling hands. "Report immediately." The commander's image appeared, her face pale with shock. She belonged to a species with smooth blue skin and large black eyes. "Our sensors detected organized electromagnetic emissions from the Sol system. Not random cosmic noise. Organized signals. Artificial signals." "Impossible," Rixtal whispered. "Earth is dead. We confirmed it dozens of times." "I thought the same thing, Ambassador. We ran every diagnostic test 3 times. The equipment is functioning perfectly. The signals are real. Someone is broadcasting from inside the Sol system." Within 2 hours, the Galactic Council assembled in emergency session. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in hundreds of languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the noise. This cannot be real. Maybe another species settled there after the humans died. Could the humans have somehow survived? Impossible. Nothing survives a direct gamma-ray burst. Commander Thexlar slammed his armored fist on his desk, creating a sound like thunder that silenced everyone. "Enough. We send an expedition. 4 scientific vessels with full military escort. We go to Sol and discover the truth." The vote passed with no opposition. Fear and curiosity gripped them all. Rixtal stared at the hologram of Earth rotating slowly in the darkness. That small, supposedly dead world suddenly felt like a mystery. Or perhaps a threat. After 50,000 years of silence, something was alive in the Sol system. And nobody knew what it was. 4 exploration ships left the Galactic Council station exactly 1 week after the mysterious signals were detected. Commander Thexlar led the expedition from his flagship, the Wanderer. The other 3 vessels followed close behind, each carrying teams of scientists, soldiers, and diplomatic specialists. They traveled through hyperspace for 6 days before finally reaching the edge of the Sol system. "Approaching outer boundary now," the navigator announced. "Dropping to normal space in 30 seconds. Thexlar felt his heart's beating faster. In his 200 years of military service, he had explored countless systems. But none had ever filled him with such unease. What could possibly be alive in a system everyone knew was dead? The ships emerged from hyperspace near the orbit of the 9th planet. Immediately, every alarm on the bridge began screaming. "Commander!" The sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. "I'm detecting artificial structures everywhere. Neptune has orbital platforms. Dozens of them." Thexlar rushed to the sensor display. His eyes widened in disbelief. The ice giant planet was surrounded by massive space stations, each one larger than anything the Council had built. Energy signatures pulsed from their cores. They were active. Operational. "Move us deeper into the system," Thexlar ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "Slowly. Prepare all defensive systems but do not power weapons. We come in peace." The 4 ships advanced cautiously. With each passing hour, the impossible became more real. Saturn appeared on their screens, its famous rings sparkling in the distant sun's light. But something was different. The rings contained enormous shipyards stretching for millions of kilometers. Half-constructed vessels floated in organized rows, their hulls gleaming with fresh metal. "How many ships?" Thexlar whispered. "Scanning now, Commander." The sensor officer worked frantically at his console. His face turned gray. "Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. All military designs. And they're detecting similar signatures throughout the entire system." Jupiter came next. Its moons had been transformed into industrial complexes. Massive structures mined the planet's atmosphere for hydrogen and helium. Automated factories operated on every moon, producing materials at a scale that seemed impossible for any civilization. "Commander," the communications officer called out. "Mars is showing signs of active terraforming. I'm reading liquid water on the surface. Breathable atmosphere. Growing vegetation." Thexlar could not speak. His mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. Mars had been a dead rock for billions of years. Now it was becoming a living world. Finally, they approached Earth itself. The small blue planet hung in space, looking exactly as it did in ancient archives. But now it was surrounded by defensive platforms, weapons arrays, and a shimmering energy shield that covered the entire planet. "Energy readings are off the scale," the science officer reported. "That planetary shield requires more power than our entire fleet generates in a year. Every single day." The communications console suddenly crackled to life. A voice spoke in an ancient language that the translation computers took several seconds to identify. Then the message repeated in perfect galactic standard. "Attention unidentified vessels. You have entered sovereign human territory. Power down your weapons systems and state your intentions immediately." The bridge fell absolutely silent. Every crew member stared at Thexlar, waiting for orders. "Human." Thexlar finally managed to say. "Respond on all frequencies. Tell them we are peaceful explorers from the Galactic Council. Tell them we believed this system was uninhabited." Before the communications officer could respond, every sensor on every ship began screaming warnings simultaneously. "Contact. Multiple contacts." The tactical officer shouted. "Ships emerging from behind Earth's moon. Reading 30 vessels, each one larger than our flagship." On the main view screen, the human fleet appeared. Sleek warships with designs unlike anything in Council records moved with perfect precision. Their hulls were dark gray, almost black, covered in armor plating that absorbed sensor scans. Weapon ports lined their sides, dozens on each ship. The lead human vessel was massive, easily 5 times the size of the Wanderer. It positioned itself directly between the Council expedition and Earth, blocking their path. The other 29 warships spread out in a defensive formation that demonstrated military discipline and tactical excellence. "They're surrounding us," the tactical officer whispered. "We're completely boxed in." Thexlar stared at the screen, finally understanding the truth. Humanity had never died. They had been here all along, watching, building, preparing. For 50,000 years, they had existed in absolute silence while the galaxy forgot they ever existed. And now they had returned. The human warships held their position for 3 tense hours before sending another transmission. Commander Thexlar sat frozen in his command chair, watching the massive vessels that surrounded his small expedition. Finally, a message arrived. "Council ships, you are granted permission to dock with Earth Orbital Station 7. A diplomatic team will meet you there. Any deviation from the specified flight path will be considered hostile action." Thexlar ordered his fleet to comply. They had no other choice. As they approached the station, he noticed it was larger than most Council colony worlds. Thousands of smaller ships moved around it like insects around a hive. The level of organization was frightening. The docking process was smooth and efficient. When Thexlar and Ambassador Rixtal stepped off their ship, they found themselves in a massive hangar that could have held 20 of their vessels. Human soldiers stood at attention along the walls, wearing dark armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Their faces were hidden behind helmets with glowing blue visors. A woman walked forward to greet them. She was tall, with dark hair tied back and warm brown eyes that studied them carefully. She wore a simple gray uniform with insignia on her shoulders. Despite her small size compared to Thexlar's armored bulk, she carried herself with absolute authority. "I am Admiral Yuna Kim, commander of the Solar Defense Fleet," she said in perfect galactic standard. "Welcome to Earth orbit. Please follow me. We have much to discuss." They walked through corridors that gleamed with technology Rixtal did not recognize. The walls displayed constantly shifting information in human writing. Automated systems moved supplies without any visible operators. Everything was efficient, clean, and far more advanced than Council standard technology. Admiral Kim led them to a conference room with windows overlooking Earth. The planet's surface showed sprawling cities connected by glowing energy networks. Orbital elevators stretched from the surface to space like massive threads. The sight was breathtaking. "You look confused," Admiral Kim said as she gestured for them to sit. "The Council believed we were extinct. I understand that. We wanted you to believe it." "How?" Rixtal finally found his voice. "The gamma ray burst destroyed everything. Our probes detected no life for 50,000 years." Admiral Kim touched a control panel and holographic images filled the air. They showed Earth burning, cities crumbling, billions dying in moments as radiation scoured the planet's surface. "The burst killed 87% of our population instantly," she said quietly. "Another 10% died in the following weeks. Only 300 million survived, scattered across underground bunkers we had built for nuclear war scenarios." She paused, letting them absorb this. Mars had a small research colony of 5 million people. They survived because they were already underground. The outer system stations held another 2 million. That was all. From 8 billion to 307 million in a single day. Thexlar felt something unfamiliar, shame. "Your species sent distress signals. We have records. Why did no one help?" "Because we were primitive," Admiral Kim said without anger, only cold fact. "The Council debated for months whether to intervene. By the time they decided we were worth saving, they assumed we were already dead. And in a way they were right. The old humanity died that day." She changed the holographic display. It showed underground cities expanding, generation after generation living in darkness. Mars colonies spreading across the red planet. Shipyards being built in the asteroid belt with equipment salvaged from ruins. "We made a choice," Admiral Kim continued. "We would go silent. We would shut down all external communications. We would make the galaxy forget we existed. And we would spend however long it took to become strong enough that we would never be helpless again." 50,000 years, Rixtal whispered. "You spent 50,000 years preparing." "Yes. We call it the chrysalis. Like a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly, we transformed ourselves. We extended human lifespans to 500 years through genetic modification. We built artificial intelligence systems to accelerate our technological development. Every generation was born knowing their purpose, to make humanity strong enough to survive anything." Admiral Kim stood and walked to the window. "We learned from watching the Council through hidden probes. We studied every species, every war, every technological breakthrough. We took the best ideas from 1,000 civilizations and improved them." "Your population?" Thexlar asked. 200 billion across the Sol system. Our fleet numbers 150,000 warships, each one capable of fighting 100 Council vessels simultaneously." She turned back to face them, her expression hard. "Now I have a question for you, Commander. We want our place in the Galactic Council. We want recognition as a sovereign civilization. And we want to know why, when we were dying, when billions of our people were burning alive, absolutely no one came to help us." The silence that followed was absolute. Thexlar and Rixtal looked at each other, unable to answer. The truth was too shameful to speak aloud. Humanity had been judged too primitive, too unimportant to save. Admiral Kim smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "That silence tells me everything I need to know." The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 days after Commander Thexlar returned with his report. Every delegate attended, and millions more watched through live broadcast across thousands of worlds. The chamber buzzed with fear, anger, and confusion. Ambassador Rixtal stood at the central podium, his scales pale with stress. The humans are real. They are alive. And they are far more powerful than any single member species of this council. Perhaps more powerful than all of us combined. Chaos erupted. Delegates shouted in every language imaginable. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for diplomatic negotiations. Many simply sat in stunned silence, unable to process the impossible truth. Supreme Chancellor Morvan, an elderly being who had led the council for 3 centuries, raised his crystalline hand for silence. We must decide how to respond. The humans demand a seat on this council and recognition of their sovereignty over the Sol system. They should be grateful we even consider them. General Cross of the Krell Empire shouted, his massive red form rising from his seat. The Krell were the council's strongest military power, warriors who had conquered 50 star systems through force. They hide like cowards for thousands of years, then demand respect? I say we show them the price of such arrogance. Many delegates murmured agreement. The Krell military was legendary, with fleets that numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Surely even the humans could not stand against such might. But Ambassador Rixtal shook his head slowly. General Cross, I must advise extreme caution. The human technology is beyond anything in our databases. Their ships, their weapons, their defensive systems, all of it is more advanced than Council standard by generations, perhaps centuries. Technology means nothing without the warrior spirit. Cross slammed his fist down. The Krell have never lost a war. We will teach these humans their place. Chancellor Morvan looked troubled. Perhaps we should attempt diplomacy first. We could offer them limited membership, observer status until they prove themselves trustworthy. No. A quiet voice spoke from the diplomatic section. It belonged to Ambassador Rixtal. Respectfully, Chancellor, the humans will not accept anything less than full membership. And they have every right to be angry with us. He activated a holographic display showing archived communications from 50,000 years ago. Distress signals from Earth, desperate pleas for help, millions of voices crying out as their world burned. And beside them, council records showing the debate that followed, cold calculations about whether primitive humans were worth the resources to save. We let them die, Rixtal said quietly. We had the power to help and we chose not to. They know this. They have known it for 50,000 years. The chamber fell silent. The truth was undeniable and shameful. The debate continued for days. Finally, the council agreed to invite human representatives for formal negotiations. But General Cross and the Krell Empire refused to accept this decision. They saw humanity as a threat that needed to be eliminated before it grew stronger. 2 weeks later, a Krell patrol fleet encountered a human survey ship near Alpha Centauri, just outside Council territory. The Krell commander, confident in his 12 warships against one human vessel, demanded the humans surrender and leave the system immediately. The human captain refused. The Krell opened fire. The human ship was destroyed in seconds, killing all 300 crew members aboard. General Cross declared it a justified response to human aggression. The Krell Empire mobilized its full battle fleet of 20,000 warships and began moving toward the Sol system. The message from Admiral Yuna Kim arrived 12 hours later. Her face appeared on every screen across Council space, calm but filled with cold fury. The Krell Empire has murdered 300 human civilians without provocation. We demand immediate justice. We demand General Cross and his officers stand trial for war crimes. And we demand the Krell fleet withdraw from our borders immediately. General Cross laughed when he heard the message. Or what, human? You will cry about it? The Krell Armada is coming. You have 3 days to surrender your system, or we will take it by force. Admiral Kim's response was simple. Very well. You have made your choice. 24 hours later, the Krell advance fleet of 500 warships entered an ambush near Proxima Centauri. A single human ship appeared on their sensors, much larger than anything they had seen before. The Krell admiral ordered all ships to open fire simultaneously. Nothing happened. Every Krell ship went dead in space. Weapons offline. Engines offline. Life support functioning but everything else completely disabled. The human ship had not fired a single shot. Admiral Kim's voice broadcast across all Krell frequencies. This is humanity's Reaper protocol. Electromagnetic pulse weapons combined with AI-guided precision strikes. We can disable your entire fleet without killing anyone. But make no mistake, we can kill you just as easily if you force us to. She paused. General Cross, your fleet has 1 hour to retreat beyond Council borders. If you refuse, the next pulse will target your life support systems. Choose wisely. The Krell fleet retreated in disgrace. General Cross raged and threatened, but his warships were helpless. The mighty Krell Empire, undefeated for 10,000 years, had been humiliated by a single human vessel. The message to the Galactic Council was clear. Humanity would not be bullied. Not anymore. The Galactic Council chamber was completely silent as Admiral Yuna Kim walked to the central podium. Every delegate watched her with a mixture of fear, respect, and curiosity. The human stood alone before 4,000 civilizations, yet she showed no nervousness. Behind her, projected on massive screens, floated images of the disabled Krell fleet still drifting helplessly in space. Chancellor Morvan spoke first, his ancient voice tired. Admiral Kim, the Council acknowledges that General Cross acted without authorization. The Krell Empire has been censured, and the General has been removed from command. We offer our deepest apologies for the deaths of your people. Apologies do not bring back the dead, Admiral Kim replied calmly. But they are a start. She activated a holographic display showing the Sol system. Humanity has spent 50,000 years alone. We rebuilt from near extinction without anyone's help. We watched the galaxy from the shadows and learned from your mistakes. We saw wars fought over resources that could have been shared. We saw species destroyed because they were deemed too weak or too different. Ambassador Rixtal stood up, his voice steady despite his nerves. What is it that humanity truly wants, Admiral? You have proven your strength. You have made your point. What happens now? Admiral Kim's expression softened slightly. We want what every civilization wants, Ambassador. Recognition. Respect. Security. We want a seat at this council with full voting rights and veto power on military actions. We want the Sol system and a 50-light-year buffer zone recognized as sovereign human territory. That is a massive territory, someone objected from the crowd. It is what we require to feel secure, Admiral Kim stated firmly. After being abandoned once, we will never put ourselves in that position again. She continued, we also want formal reparations from every civilization that detected our distress calls 50,000 years ago and chose to ignore them. Not punishment, partnership. Technology sharing agreements. Trade relationships. Cultural exchange programs. We will share our advancements with you in return for your knowledge. Commander Thexlar clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. You could simply take what you want, Admiral. Your fleet could conquer half the council before we could mount an effective defense. Why negotiate? Because conquest solves nothing, Admiral Kim said quietly. We learned that lesson watching your history. Empires built on force always fall. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to be part of it, as equals, not as conquerors or victims. The debate that followed lasted for 3 full days. Some delegates argued humanity was demanding too much. Others feared setting a precedent for other species to make similar demands. But slowly, support built for the human terms. Ambassador Rixtal became humanity's unexpected advocate. He stood before the council and spoke with passion. For my entire career, I have studied dead civilizations. Species that failed to adapt, failed to survive. But humanity did not fail. They survived the unsurvivable and became stronger. They have shown us that writing off a species as lost is the greatest mistake we can make. He looked around the chamber. They have also shown remarkable restraint. They could have attacked us the moment their fleet was ready. Instead, they waited, watched, and only revealed themselves when we trespassed in their territory. Even when the Krell murdered their people, they did not retaliate with violence. They demonstrated their power and offered mercy. Finally, the vote was called. One by one, delegates cast their decisions. When the final count appeared, the result was clear: humanity would receive everything they requested. Full council membership, sovereignty over their territory, and formal partnership agreements with dozens of willing civilizations. Admiral Kim bowed respectfully. The human government accepts these terms. We look forward to working with all of you to build a stronger, more unified galaxy. 3 months later, Ambassador Rixtal received an invitation to visit Earth. He accepted nervously, unsure what to expect. Admiral Kim met him personally at the orbital station and took him down to the planet's surface in a small shuttle. I want to show you something, she said as they descended through the clouds. They landed near a massive underground complex built into a mountain. Admiral Kim led him through ancient tunnels with walls that still showed scorch marks from 50,000 years ago. They passed through vast caverns that had once held millions of survivors, living generation after generation in darkness. Finally, they reached a memorial chamber. The walls were covered with names, billions of them. Every human who had died in the gamma ray burst was listed here, carved into stone that would last forever. This is why we survived, Admiral Kim said softly. Every child born during the chrysalis was brought here and shown these names. We never forgot what we lost. We never forgot that we were alone when we needed help most. She turned to face Rixtal. But we also learned something important during those long years in the dark. Hatred and revenge are easy. Building something better is hard. We chose the hard path. Rixtal felt tears forming in his eyes, something his species rarely experienced. Your people are extraordinary, Admiral. No, she smiled. We are just survivors who refuse to give up. And now we want to make sure no other species ever suffers what we did. They walked back toward the surface together. Above them, human ships were already departing Sol to establish embassies across the galaxy. The age of isolation was over. Humanity had returned to the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners ready to build a better future for all species. Admiral Kim looked up at the sky and whispered to herself, "We spent 50,000 years alone in the dark. Now let us see what we can build together in the light."